From Yarm to Yibby, Harrington to Horsley Hill, Swarwell to Silverlink. Steve and Rye, the North East Footy Breakfast.
Right across the North East, the Red, the Toon and the Cat.
I didn't press the button.
That was a lovely pregnant pause. I was expecting you must have been expecting me to do some kind of Rye opening going, yeah! But I'm a little bit more reserved than Rye. I think the listeners know that by now. But Newcastle United are into the quarter-finals, joining Middlesbrough of the Carabao Cup.
There you go.
All is well on Tyneside today as Newcastle United reserves beat Manchester United's first team, Casemiro and all. Yes, what a night at Old Trafford. The theatre of dreams certainly turned into the theatre of nightmares for Manchester United. The rain chucking it down again at parts of the game, through the roof, all over the Manchester United fans. But hey, fantastic. And the draw could have been worse for Newcastle. Chelsea away. If we're going to win it, we're going to do it the hard way. But what about that draw for Middlesbrough last night?
We were talking about it.
Plenty for Ian to talk about today, who is our Borough correspondent. Good morning, Ian.
Good morning. I think it's a tricky draw. I was hoping for a nice easy one like Newcastle away or something like that, but you know, we've got what we've got.
We were all hoping on this show that it was going to be Newcastle against Borough or Borough against Newcastle. It would have been a great way to continue our North East Footy Brekky show. But to be honest, lads,
well, we'll meet in the semis, mate.
Let's keep it for the semi. Let's keep it for the semi. 2 legs. We can both have what we wanted. A home game.
Wow, that would be brilliant. I know. I think it's our year again, isn't it?
20th anniversary.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
it.
Got to be.
Yeah.
We've got unfinished business as well. Newcastle's got unfinished business. We've knocked out Man City. Yeah. We've knocked out last year's winners who beat us at Wembley. Yeah. And Newcastle are on a mission. You're going to
knock out Chelsea. I'm telling you, mate. I predicted your run all the way through. If you can think back on this programme,
you did.
You know, Man City. I think you could do something there because City are not going to take it. They're not going to take it seriously. And then I went United's crisis mode. You can go there and you win. I said it yesterday morning. You can go there and you can do a number on them, and you did. Chelsea.
The big thing was avoiding Liverpool.
Same. Yeah,
the big thing was avoiding Liverpool, and now Liverpool West Ham. One of the big guns is out, and I will call West Ham a big gun because they won a trophy. They won a trophy last year, and a significant trophy at that. And they are looking like Cup Kings, West Ham. Yeah. So something's got to give at Anfield in the quarter-finals. But getting back to last night, lads, honestly, just listen to this. Dubravka, Kraft,
I know where you're going.
Livramento, Dummett, Hall, Ritchie and Willock. 7 of the Newcastle United starting 11 last night hadn't started a Premier League game this season. Yet, we have just secured our biggest win at Old Trafford in 93 years. That is significant. That is Eddie Howe and his coaching team who need to take a bow this morning, because we all looked at that team sheet last night. Lots of Newcastle fans looked at that team sheet last night and went, oh my God, what is he doing?
There was a collective 7,300 oh my gods, were there?
I defy anybody who said that team would beat the team that Manchester United put out last night. And when I saw Casemiro back on that team list, I thought, oh, well, that's just typical. And yeah, look, how wrong were we? Never doubt Eddie Howe, because he gets the best. He gets the blood out of a stone. He gets the best out of these players. And for me, lads, honestly, that I keep saying it. We've said it so many times in the last 11 weeks. That's another performance of the season. That's up there with PSG at home 4-1. That is up there with the Man City, win 1-0 in the Carabao Cup. We're creating memories, lads, and it's a great time to be a Newcastle fan. Great time to be a Borough fan. Not so sure about Sunderland at the minute, and Ted's not here to defend himself.
Yeah, he's still AWOL. Still AWOL.
He's still AWOL. But you know what? It's great, lads. It's great. It's a positive morning for Newcastle, and 7,300 Newcastle fans who will be feeling a little bleary-eyed if they're on the way to work this morning have a little hop and a skip in their step, I'm sure, today. There'll be some beaming faces.
Some of them will be in the RVI recovering from hypothermia because I was watching them shirtless in Old Trafford with the rain pouring down and the now famous leaky roof above them. So for those who are currently in Ward 37 in the RVI, we wish you a speedy recovery. You know, they'll warm you up gradually, don't worry.
Hey, when you said about your reserves play,
athletic. Go on, Ian.
When you said about your reserves playing, though, you're spoiled for choice at right back, aren't you? Livramento was superb.
Oh, jeez.
I'm not being funny, but the two players that they brought in and who haven't featured, Livramento and Lewis Hall, are two youngsters who are tipped for England fullbacks for the next 7-8 years. Kieran Trippier and Kyle Walker will not last forever, unfortunately, and those two players are going to be replaced by those two lads. It's whether they get that opportunity this season to feature at Newcastle. Hall was probably hoping he would. That's why he left Chelsea for first team opportunities. Livramento, as we know, has come back from a very serious injury for a footballer. He came back from that cruciate ligament, and he's making slow steps. But that goal last night from Livramento and the one from Hall will live in their memories. I mean, Hall is a Newcastle fan as well. It would have meant a lot to him. But
cracking left foot volley on it.
It was superb technique. Yeah.
Two really good players, but I'm not going to... You can pick out those two, right? You can pick out those two. You can pick out Matt Ritchie, who, is most players at his age are thinking about, taking their boots off, lying down, smoking a cigar, having his retirement party. Matt Ritchie's rolling back the years last night as if he's just started. And Paul Dummett, who has been another one of those whipping boys, boo boys, that the boo boys get on top of over the years. Paul Dummett, useless, cart horse, blah, blah, blah. He's come in twice this season already and done the business. And alongside Emil Kraft, who's been out for 15 months, again, with a cruciate ligament injury, Emil Kraft comes in and he's playing like Baresi last night. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. And Nick Pope has a night off, and Dubravka comes in and keeps a clean sheet. Honestly, it beggars belief. It really does. It's like living. It is living in a parallel universe. Being a Newcastle fan now, because some of these players who you just thought would never see the light of day in a black and white shirt under the mismanagement of Steve Bruce and Mike Ashley are now they're like being reborn. And I mean that's before you get started on people like Joe Linton, who everyone, including myself, said was the biggest waste of £40 million the club had ever had. Miggy Almiron, who people used to say if you left one of the fire exits open at the Gallagher end, he couldn't get the ball, but he'd end up running through it because he just runs and doesn't know what he's doing. He's like a headless chicken. He gets the opening, he gets the opening goal. I mean, it's lads, honestly, for Newcastle fans, you're in a dream world at the moment, and I'm not surprised because you just don't know where the season's going to end. And I wouldn't be surprised if against Chelsea, Newcastle's injury list increased and we ended up playing some supporters, and we all ended up having he registers a couple of supporters and gets the best out of them, because that's the way it feels at the minute. It feels like the fans could end up getting a game and Eddie Howe would get the best out of them.
Well, talking about the fans, the comments are already coming in, so why don't we just throw it wide open? We want to hear from Borough fans and Newcastle fans this morning on the North East Footy Brekky. Newcastle fans, what about that performance? Come on, let's have your views. 0330 043 2002. It is a WhatsApp message or a WhatsApp call. 0330 043 2002. Borough fans, what about the draw? We've still got to come on to that. What about that draw? We were talking about it on the show yesterday. 1 in 7 chance of pulling Port Vale. Well, the Borough did. So again, your thoughts. WhatsApp messages, please. 0330 043 2002. One that has come in straight away. Morning, guys. Congratulations to Rye and Mrs. Rye. Hope mum and baby are well. I think Man United can change their name back to Newton Heath. There's only one United and it plays in black and white. Have a good day all. That's Daniil, who's a regular listener to the show. So United fans, come on, give us your thoughts on that performance last night. What impressed you the most? And the big question, can you win it? Can you go on and win it? Borough fans, the same. How far can you go? Can we get to a final? And can it be won again in 20 years? There's some big names in there, though, and we're no longer a Premier League team. 0330 043 2002. 2. I read all that out, mate, because I just wanted to give you a chance to calm down, because you sounded like you were really going off on one, Steve. You were just
it's
launching yourself into space, mate.
It's incredible, to be honest. You don't need coffee on mornings like this because you're just hyped up with the football. I mean, so many things that you could point at, which were positive last night, and as I say, it comes off the back of a lot of negatives with the news that we'd had at the press conference that Sven Botman was potentially going to be out until next year. No set date on it, but talking about joining the long-term list of casualties, which means he's not going to be back anytime soon, which is disappointing, and obviously joining the likes of Harvey Barnes, who we're hoping is now going to be back in December. Alexander Isak's going to be out until the 25th of November, so we're saying, well, you're going to have to wrap Callum Wilson in cotton wool, because we know what his hamstrings are like. So we didn't really have to use those players last night, and that's what Eddie Howe has done. And I saw a Manchester United fan put it out on social media last night that if Newcastle United's team that was picked last night beat Manchester United's team, you might as well give Eddie Howe Manager of the Year now, because that team, and that was before a ball had been kicked. And he's right. He is right, because that's what managers, coaches get paid the big money to do. And it just if there's ever a condemnation of Steve Bruce, and I'm not a Steve Bruce fan.
How's the bacon?
Ever a condemnation? How's the bacon? I hope he goes to Old Trafford, by the way. if there's ever a condemnation of Steve Bruce, then it's what Eddie Howe is doing. But game by game, this should be putting a nail in his coffin.
Deity.
Getting a job again.
He's the Geordie deity, Lord Howe of St James's. That's what he's become.
He is, and like I've said yesterday, if Eddie Howe wins that trophy, or a trophy in the next couple of years, he surpasses Kevin Keegan and Sir Bobby Robson in the list, because he will have won something, and that is something that Newcastle fans will probably. There'll have to be a national week off on Tyneside if we do actually win that trophy that Borough won 20 years ago.
You'll shut us up finally. Yeah, go on.
But you know what the feeling's like. You know what I mean? You were the last team to win one in the North East, and from our perspective, we haven't deserved to win anything. But at the moment, slowly but surely, we're finding the consistency levels where these big results aren't now something which are. It's still exciting at the moment, but we're doing it on a more regular basis now. We've beaten over the last couple of years under Eddie Howe's leadership. We've beaten Chelsea, we've beaten Manchester United, we've beaten Manchester City, we've beaten Liverpool, and these teams now, we've beaten Arsenal. These teams now, fear coming to St James's Park, and now this is the ultimate. The fear us going to their grounds, and now it's Chelsea will
just
be,
like the Borough.
There'll be a collective.
It is, exactly.
There'll be a collective groan around Stamford Bridge last night when that draw was made. Normally it would have been a collective groan around Tyneside, but now Chelsea will be going, oh, what could have done without this, and that's where we're at. I mean, fair play to Specsavers last night as well. I've got to give them a big mention. There are other people who supply glasses, of course, other companies.
We're not the BBC, mate. We don't have to do that. Don't worry. You can talk about Specsavers.
I know, but I may get freebies off these other glasses companies. So I want to keep them happy. Man United fans, if you take your glasses to any Specsavers store today, they said last night on their official Twitter account that they'll swap them for a blindfold so you don't have to watch the football at Old Trafford anymore. So well done, Specsavers. That's very generous of you.
Oh dear. Look, I know we're going to get into the club headlines very shortly, in fact in the next handful of seconds, but things we've still got to talk about. We will dig more into Newcastle's performance. Even as a Borough fan through gritted teeth, I've got to say, you looked impressive, mate. You looked absolutely fantastic when I was watching that game. Borough's draw, they've got Port Vale. That I know you can't count your chickens, because it is a huge banana skin waiting to be trodden on. but it does give them a fantastic opportunity to get through the semi-finals of the League Cup. So we'll be talking about that. And Sunderland fans, we haven't forgotten you. You've had a week off to recover and prepare for your trip to South Wales, but James Copley from the Sunderland Echo, Sunderland writer, big Sunderland fan as well, is going to join us on the show in the second hour. So we will be talking Sunderland as well. All of that is to come on the North East Footy Brekky. But let's get into the old footy headlines.
Mackems and Proud. Black Cats News.
It's Player of the Month time at the Stadium of Light after an incredible month of September. Super Jack Clark, Defensive Rock Dan Ballard, Watford Slayer, and Pride of Northern Ireland Try Humour all nominated. Fans can jump on the club's Twitter account to vote. Lee Howie has taken a pop at Terry Butcher's 10-month spell in charge of Sunderland, describing him as a terrible manager. After joining the Black Cats, Butcher avoided relegation but was sacked in December of his first season in charge after a poor run of results. And the Lasses have been well represented in the international break. Ellen Jones and Mary McAteer were both selected for Wales' senior squad in their UEFA Nation Leagues games, with McAteer making her debut for the Dragons, coming on against Germany. Katie Watson bagged 2 for England under-19s in games against Greece and Wales. And that is your Sunderland headlines.
Magpies and Proud. Mags News.
Newcastle United marched into the quarter-finals of the Carabao Cup last night with a demolition of last year's trophy winners Manchester on their own patch, in front of 7,300 travelling supporters on another momentous night. Goals from Almiron and Hall in the first half were followed up with a superb strike from Willock as Eddie Howe made 8 changes to the side that drew up Wolves on Saturday. The reward for last night's win is another away draw, this time to Chelsea at Stamford Bridge in December. John Terry has revealed he was rejected by Newcastle and 2 League One clubs after leaving Aston Villa. Terry claims he was interviewed for the St James's Park hot seat before Eddie Howe took the job. And Eddie Howe has been tipped to succeed Gareth Southgate as England manager by former Three Lions striker Peter Crouch. The former Liverpool and England striker made the prediction in an interview yesterday. What does he know? Anyway, that's your Newcastle United headlines this Thursday morning.
Smoggies and Proud. Borough News.
Borough have been given a fantastic opportunity to progress to the semi-finals of the League Cup. Former Newcastle striker Andy Cole pulled Borough out of the hat to face League One Port Vale away from home in the quarter-finals. Michael Carrick's boys will have to wait until a week before Christmas before they pull on the boots at the Potteries. Meanwhile, Carrick has sung the praises of the 1,400 Borough fans that made the 700-mile, 14-hour round trip to a sellout Exeter City's St James's Park 2 days ago. The Borough boss described the support as outstanding, but says he wasn't at all surprised at the following. And the same fans now face a longer trip this weekend to fellow Devonians, Plymouth Argyle, on Saturday's championship battle in another sellout match. Plymouth sit 19th in the table and have only 1 win in the last 5 games. And that's your Borough News this morning.
Steve and Rye. The North East Footy Breakfast.
Right across the North East, the Red, the Cat and the Tune.
I did miss one out.
Dave, is there any chance of getting a jingle with just Steve on today?
I'll have to shut up for 20 minutes while I make it, mate, which a lot of people across the North East will say would be a wonderful thing.
Ian, if you haven't, I'm not sure whether you've heard this, Ian. There's been a proper ruckus on this radio show about who's got the order of what.
Yeah.
Ted, they've got the new jingle with Ted on, and Ted's only been here a week. Well,
this one. You mean this one, mate? You mean this one?
Ted, Rye, and Steve. The North East.
Unbelievable. And
we wanted to make him feel at home.
Present.
Mate, we wanted to make him feel welcome. That's all it was. He was joining us, and then he bogged off because you upset him by accusing him of being first.
I was expecting banners all the way down from the station for me, mate, on the flagpoles, but no.
Yeah, he lets you down, that Dave guy.
I know, it's terrible.
I love it. They were blaming Daz. Daz didn't make it. I made it. I just let him take the flak. By the way, Sunderland fans, I do apologise this morning. My script did have a name missing. It should have been Watford Slayer Niall Huggins. So there you go.
Yeah, classic.
Let's. I mean, we'll get more into Newcastle's victory, of course, because it was a magnificent display. I saw the stats at one point. The possession stats shots were 61% Newcastle in that game. I know they levelled out and Manchester United just edged it towards the end of the full 90 minutes or whatever it was played. 273 minutes I think we play these days, with all the time added on. But it was a great performance, and we will get into that in more depth. And Newcastle fans, give us your thoughts. Come on, you listen to the.
You know what it was?
Yeah.
You know what it was, David? It was probably the fact that Manchester United's tops and socks were too tight. I want to give them you need to give them an out, and that's probably what it was. I mean, did you see that story yesterday, lads?
No, I didn't.
Wearing. Okay, so Manchester United stars have been moaning, right, that the socks and tops that they have from the actual strips are too tight, and this is why they're underperforming. So they're now apparently wearing replica items of Adidas kit during matches. I mean, where does this rank in the worst excuses made by footballers? Because this isn't the first time Manchester United have used this when they've had a tonkin. If you remember when Newcastle beat them 5-0 at St James's Park, they then had another game at Southampton, this infamous match where I think they lost the game 6-2. This was the week after they got beat off Newcastle at St James's Park, and they had grey strips on, and they said they couldn't see each other in the grey strips.
Yeah, I remember that one.
I mean, Manchester United have got like this kind of reputation, I think, of coming up with excuses. Come on, lads! You can't make excuses like that. It's quite clear to anyone watching Manchester United last night where they're at. They genuinely have a team of misfits, a team of individuals.
Yeah.
There isn't a team there, and you've got people like Anthony, who got into the team last night, who spends more time, gesticulating towards the bench, gesticulating towards his own players, playing hell with people because the ball hasn't played exactly where he wants it. The captain is an absolute disgrace.
Yeah.
They're just not a team.
Well, Hannibal.
And Ten Hag stands there.
Hannibal was lucky not to be sent off because of his petulance.
Yeah.
It was just ridiculous. And you looked, and I was saying this, my son and I were sitting there watching it, and I just said to him, look at the difference here. The Newcastle players are playing as a team. They were looking for each other, playing for each other, moving into space. I mean, that second goal, the way who was it who ran on the outside and put the ball in? Who dinked the ball over the crowd? But the way the pass was just waited for the player to run outside. They were looking for each other, looking for opportunities. Man United were 11 red shirts. 11 individuals.
5 players mourning at the ref
I know.
while Newcastle went up and scored.
For the goal. I know, that was brilliant. Stopping play during the game to whinge at the ref and then totally forgetting your opponents can do you on the counter. I mean, that sums up Man United at the moment.
Yeah, there's no team there at the moment, and Ten Hag has got to be at least a game or two away from getting the sack if they continue in that kind of form. And I just don't know who goes in. I don't care, to be honest. But
I wouldn't be shocked if there's a board meeting today.
Yeah.
Discussing Ten Hag. I really wouldn't be shocked because it was that abject in a performance by Manchester United yesterday at Old Trafford in front of 72,000 fans. Yeah, I know, almost 7,500 of them were Newcastle fans. Great support. Yeah. But it was a full Old Trafford. So there's a huge chunk of Man United fans there, and I think the most used word in the second half in that game was exit.
Yeah,
that was it. People were looking for the exit. Shall we go now? And Old Trafford had almost emptied, barring one end, before we got anywhere near full time.
I don't think it's just a team of individuals. I mean, some of the individuals have spent a lot of money on Anthony. If we swapped Anthony for Isaiah Jones, I'd be gutted. Isaiah Jones is a much better player than him.
I love how you get it back to Borough. Good lad.
This is it. This is the problem Manchester United have got. They've just got no leadership, and I know this this on-off takeover won't do them any good because Newcastle have been there. We've been through this whole process. There's uncertainty from the board level. Then the manager is the one who has to to cope with the team, and uncertainty doesn't help. And they thought they were going to have Sheikh Jazim, something which we as Newcastle fans never thought was going to happen. Proved to be right with that, and then they've now got this on-off takeover take over in the background, and yeah, that does unsettle people. It does unsettle stars, but that's no excuse for somebody who is as revered a manager as Ten Hag is, not to try and get the best out of his team and players. And I think his management of certain situations has led to this position he finds himself in. We've covered it on the show. Sancho, not even allowed to train, with the team, not even allowed to eat with the first team now. That kind of petulance, that kind of pettiness, no matter what Sancho has done, is going to have a knock-on effect in that dressing room, because those players, some of those players will be best friends with Sancho. Some of those players will be thinking, well, hold on a minute, what if I disagree with something that Ten Hag says? Am I going to end up in the same position? That's not conducive for a positive relationship in the dressing room, and that's where Manchester United are at. And it doesn't matter who you are, you'll take full advantage of it. Anybody capable will be able to take full advantage of this. And back-to-back defeats, 3-0 defeats, one against the local rivals, Man City. Somebody who, a team that used to be the noisy neighbours who are now dominating football, and one against one of your old rivals, Newcastle, who used to be so far behind you, you couldn't see them. Who are now edging in front of you, as Roy Keane said.
There's no love lost from that Fergie Keegan era. The United fans, Manchester United fans, they still dislike Newcastle United. Make no mistake. So the noisy neighbours have done you and put you right in your place. And that other team they don't like, that happens to be on the other side of the Pennines and a bit further north, they've just put you in your place. I would not be surprised if there are discussions at Old Trafford this morning about the manager.
Yeah, I agree. I think he'll be gone. But I mean, I don't know who they bring in after that. I really, really don't. I mean, there was cheeky suggestions yesterday that Eddie Howe and Jason Tindall could be on the shortlist for Manchester United. I think that was.
Why would they do it? Why would they move?
They wouldn't. Of course they wouldn't. I mean, that is just media mischief at its best. That's trying to unsettle Newcastle before they go down to Old Trafford. We're not playing those games anymore. This isn't little Newcastle who's a sleeping giant. This is Newcastle that's a club that's fully awake now, that has the money that needs you need in this game in this day and age to help to achieve. But like I say, money doesn't buy success. Just look at Chelsea. Look at Manchester United. They've took out 3 loans this season already, and they're still misfiring, still not performing. They're out of the Carabao Cup now, and they're not looking too good in the Champions League either, and they're way behind in the Premiership title race. They've only got the FA Cup to aim for again. So that's the difference. Newcastle have pushed on and overtaken them. Roy Keane's right, and he said that at the weekend. We brought it up on the show at the start of the week. Roy Keane said that Manchester United have fallen behind Newcastle United now, and I agree. He's I like Roy Keane. Didn't like him as a player because he was a great player, and he was part of a successful Manchester United team that prevented Newcastle from winning the title. And but as a commentator, as somebody who gives his opinion on the game, I respect him, and I do listen to what he says, and he is right. He's very rarely wrong. Gary Neville's the same. Gary Neville's the same. Gives an open, honest, frank opinion on his old team, and it's doom and gloom from all of those ex-Manchester United players. You can't sugarcoat it.
I like
Manchester United have finished.
I like the comment on Sky yesterday when the Newcastle fans were singing en masse, "You're going to get sacked in the morning," and the commentator mentioned it, didn't he? Oh, they're singing, "You're going to get sacked in the morning," and he turned around and Gary Neville was co-commentating, and Neville said, "What, me?"
Yeah.
So how is a commentator to really highlight how the fans are rubbing it in? Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, let's have a listen to Eddie Howe, because obviously he was, let's just say he had a big smile on his face immediately after that game. This is a little clip of what he had to tell Sky afterwards.
No, it's a very good performance from us. I thought the mentality of the group was unbelievable tonight. We had injuries coming into the game, and then we pick up another one within seconds of the game starting, which very easy for the players to feel sorry for themselves, but credit to the group for an unbelievable response. So many good stories within the team and how the players performed.
So what were those stories, Steve? What was he, so many good stories. What were they? What caught your eye?
So many good stories. I mean, just the fact that he's got, supposedly a lack of strength and depth, yet he keeps finding strength and depth from places you would never expect. The 2 good stories, obviously the standout stories, were Livramento and Hall. The fact that they both capped, their fine performances with a goal apiece, were that is the story of the night, you've got to say. But Paul Dummett and Emil Kraft at centre half. Come on, man. Nobody in a million years would have had those two going in with Dubravka behind them and keeping a clean sheet and getting through to the quarterfinals. Not in a million years. I'd love to know what the odds were at the bookies when that team was announced. What it dropped to. I didn't check, but Newcastle United would not have been favourites to go through last night with those two lineups. Yet, magnificent performances from the guys. Those are the stories you're talking about. Joe Linton hasn't had the best of luck with injuries this season, and again back to his magnificent best last night. Standout performer, one that doesn't really get mentioned because Livramento and Hall are getting the plaudits, and rightly so. Anthony Gordon setting up 3 goals, and that guy has been so far for me player of the season. He has run his heart out for Newcastle. He's run himself into the ground. He's finding different levels, different dimensions, and he is somebody who Newcastle fans, maybe he's had raised eyebrows at when he first came to the club, but you know what, he's proven to be a valuable asset. And if he has to play up front at some point, don't doubt him. He'll score goals, but he creates goals as well. So yeah, lots of positivity, lots of great performances last night, and you always have that feeling. It's that old Stockholm syndrome. I mentioned it yesterday. I've mentioned it many times. But you always have that feeling that something's going to go wrong. Something's not going to go right. There is a potential banana skin. We can't cope with playing that team. Newcastle have proved already again this season that on our day we can beat anybody.
Yeah.
PSG, Manchester City, Manchester United. There is now a graveyard of big name teams coming to St James's or us coming to you, and it's a different beast now. Newcastle aren't the whipping boys, and at the moment, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. But at this moment in time, Newcastle aren't far away from winning that first piece of silverware. And once you win one, as long as you continue in the same vein, more will come. But I'm not gonna go on about this all morning, although Newcastle fans would like to.
Yes, you are.
We've got to get some. We've got to have some adverts, and we've got to have some sports news. Dave.
We do indeed. We'll pick up the story of the draw and looking ahead after the sports news. And just a quick message to Daniil from our mate Rye. He's just said thanks for thinking about him. That was Daniil earlier who wished Rye and Mrs. Rye all the best, and congratulations on the birth of the new bub, as they're describing in Australia. The bub is Australian for baby, just so you know. I know we have
young Steve Harper.
We have to try. Yeah, Mad Borough fan fancy calling his second born after a Newcastle player. Who'd have thought it? More chat.
He was a goalkeeping coach at Middlesbrough though, so I'll give you that right.
All right, yeah, good lad though. Good lad, Harps. Yeah, good lad, Harps. It is the North East Footy Breakfast across the North East on our 3 radio stations: the Cat across Wayside, the Toon across Tyneside, and the Red across Teesside. Sports news now. More chat after this. Van Halen and Jump. Oh my goodness. Bit of a rocky sort of sound there for the rockmeister that is Steve Wraith. He's really happy, is Steve, because the boss is coming back to the North East.
Isn't he?
Have you got your tickets sorted out yet, mate? I know they haven't gone on. They're going sale tomorrow. I'm sure you've got contacts.
I spoke to Sam, but the best way to do it is speak to a season ticket holder from Sunderland. So yeah, I've got a season ticket holder from Sunderland who is apparently get priority. So yeah, he's on the case. He's on the case for me and a couple of my mates. And family. So yeah, it looks like Sunderland is where we're going to go. But we'll make a decision later today. Either way, I'll do London or I'll do Sunderland. But it'll be a great gig. As I say, I went to see Springsteen twice this year, and he's epic. To be fair.
Yeah. Well, there you go. You see, Mags and Mackems coming together to live in perfect harmony because it's non-football.
Yeah,
I like it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Spread the love.
But as long as he doesn't get on stage and go, "Good evening, Newcastle," when he gets on the stage at the stadium, I'm
you
sure
cheer,
Bruce
mate.
Springsteen will get the same reception he got last time.
You'd cheer, wouldn't you?
Yeah, of course I would, yeah. It was David Bowie, infamously on his Glass Spider tour, did that.
Yeah.
Good evening, Newcastle, and got booed.
Yeah. Nice. I've got to ask you about Eddie Howe, mate. I mean, I know I've been saying for a few weeks now, Eddie Howe's going to be the next England manager, and every time you poo-poo me. But it's not just me saying it now. You know, Peter Crouch, the former lanky beanpole striker, that is Peter Crouch, has come out and said he'll succeed. He's tipping him to succeed Gareth Southgate. Are you really absolutely 100% behind your view of a few weeks ago that there is absolutely not a cat in hell's chance that Eddie Howe will be the next England manager?
Yes, 100%. There's no way Eddie Howe is going to go to England at this moment in time, and I think he feels that he's got work to do. He's not going to do all that he's done at Newcastle just to get the England job. He wants to finish the job. He wants to win Newcastle a trophy. He wants to be that manager. The first manager since Joe Harvey in 1969 to lead a team to silverware. That is something which he will be judged on as a manager for the rest of time. Doing the England job can be a poison chalice. Now, my tip, of course, has always been Graham Potter. But the news in the Daily Mirror this morning is that he is now in the mix to become Sweden's new national team manager.
Really?
Now, this is a fortnight after he was touted as becoming Erik ten Hag's replacement at Manchester United. Now, I said yesterday, I can't see Potter going to Manchester United if Ten Hag goes. If Potter goes to Manchester United, then there is one thing that Graham Potter cares about, and that is money. Not football, not ambition, but money. Because he went to Chelsea, he chased the money at Chelsea, he went there and he was on a hiding to nothing, and he left with his tail between his legs. And if he ends up going to Manchester United, if Ten Hag does get sacked, my feelings about Potter will change. But I can't see him going to Sweden. I just don't see the attraction for him going to Sweden. I think he will sit and wait until Gareth Southgate decides to hand in his resignation letter before 2024 and go, I'm going to go out, this is going to be my last tournament and I want to give somebody else a chance, and I think it'll be Potter. He's the natural fit. That's the kind of managers that get the job at the FA. I can't see Eddie Howe doing it. And although Eddie Howe and Jason Tindall would be a perfect fit for England, and if he wasn't a Newcastle manager,
so many boxes.
I would probably say yes.
Tick so many boxes.
Get Howe in. But I've heard him at his press conferences, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but more and more. He's not going to say it again. He has no interest in that England job at this moment in time. He's not saying he hasn't got an interest in the England job at some point, but at this moment in time, he doesn't see his future anywhere out of anyone. He's moved his family here, his wife and his kids. He's settled. He's got a job to do. And, he would not leave Newcastle United in that kind of mess, which it would be a mess. After all that work and effort that you've put in and you've done, it would be a shock to the system. It would be akin to Kevin Keegan walking out on Newcastle, just after, nearly winning the title and not coming back. Newcastle would be stunned. It's not going to happen, though. It is not going to happen. And that's not me. That is 100%. That isn't me with a little bit of doubt and saying, well, 95% sure Eddie Howe's not going anywhere. And, good luck to England in whoever they find to replace Southgate. But and I think Southgate's done a good job. Would I be upset if Southgate stayed? If he was somebody if somebody said, look, I'm going to give it another go, I'm going to try and get to the next World Cup, I'm going to be in that position, again for the next 4 years, I wouldn't be disappointed at all. But I think England fans would have something to say. I think England fans want to change. I think Southgate's, I wouldn't say he's outstayed his welcome. I just think ultimately he's somebody now who's it's becoming predictable. It's becoming boring. I think his selections are questionable at times because he says he picks players on form. He clearly doesn't, and he's picking goalkeepers that aren't even getting a game now. Yet Nick Pope's an ever-present in Newcastle's team in the Premier League. Yet he can't get in. I just think some of his decisions now are questionable, and I think it needs a little bit of new blood in that dugout. But look, we'll wait and see what happens. But Eddie Howe, England manager, not on your Nelly.
I disagree. I think 2024, if England come knocking, it's different to saying it when they've actually asked you to be England manager, and you're talking about.
And they will ask him.
Yeah, and I think he probably would go. I mean, ambition on a world stage. I know Newcastle playing.
I think Michael Carrick will go. I think Michael Carrick's a great fit. He's English. He had a wonderful career at Manchester United.
I can see the straws being clutched at here.
I'm more worried about him going to Manchester United.
Yeah, I know.
To be honest,
I know. Carrick. That's where Carrick's going to head before he gets anywhere near the England job. But on Howe, mate. I mean, it's and Daniil. We've upset Daniil. Eddie Howe, next England manager, 2 hopes, Bob Hope and no hope. But again, Daniil's another Newcastle fan. So Newcastle fans, I can absolutely understand digging heels in and coming up with every excuse under the sun why he's not interested. But 2 things for me. One, Potter. You mentioned Potter, and Potter could be, in the thoughts of the FA, but he does have links with Sweden. He spent some time at Östersunds. Yeah. He took Östersunds into the into European competition, and I think it was the Champions League he got him into. So he knows the country well. He knows the people well. He knows the football well, and he's it was a favourable time for him. So him going back there as the national team manager would not be a surprise for me, which could remove him out of the equation. So I know what you're saying about Eddie and his thoughts and his project at Newcastle, but if you put yourself in Mark Bullingham's shoes, the chief exec at the FA, if they are to move on next year from Gareth Southgate, who does he immediately think of? And if you've got an English manager absolutely tearing up the Premier League in terms of performance, with a I don't mean this disrespectfully, but not the usual traditional fashionable club, i.e. a Manchester United or a Manchester City or an Arsenal, and his performances are amplified because he's doing it with Newcastle. Because it's like, wow, look at the job this guy's doing, rather than, well, he should. He's at Manchester United. I just think they will ask him. I think they'll come knocking.
Well, I think they'll ask him. And
I think that's completely different. That then is completely different for Howe if the FA have come asking and he's been offered the job, rather than right now where everybody's coming out with all kinds of tripe about he's going to be the next one, and he can quite easily just kick it into the long grass. No problem.
He's a day-to-day manager. He's a day-to-day manager. He loves being on the coaching pitch. You don't do that as an England manager. You go out, you're sitting with a high puller, you're at various grounds, and you're sitting watching matches, which isn't what he wants to do. He's a tracksuit manager, and you can't do it. Here's what: if they offered him on a part-time basis and said you can manage Newcastle, but we want you to manage England as well, he'd say no. He's not that kind of person. Genuinely, you can see it. You see it in the press conferences. I would say 100% he's not gonna go. I'll chuck one into the mix.
Go on.
Jose Mourinho will be the England manager.
No, they wouldn't have him. For the same reasons they didn't take Brian Clough. Yeah.
Because he's what? Because he's too much of a maverick.
Because he doesn't. Yeah, because he doesn't fit the mould. Because they probably couldn't trust him to keep his mouth shut and say the right things at the right time.
I think they will go for somebody foreign. I think they'll go for that kind of Sven Gordon Eriksson kind of manoeuvre. There'll be somebody you won't expect that will take the job. I doubt that it's going to be. I doubt that it's going to be somebody as predictable. I think Eddie Howe will be on a short list. I think Graham Potter, as long as he's not in a job, will be on a short list. And I think I think they will have a couple of potentially big names like that. I still think that's what they'll go for. They'll go for something different. It's got to be somebody different from Southgate. I don't think they'll want a continuity. They'll want somebody different. There's been so many managers that we've had in the Premier League. Pochettino was always somebody who I thought potentially could have gone in if you're going to go down that foreign route, but I just think they'll go for something completely different. But I do think Southgate will go. And I think there will be that kind of call to arms. I think Eddie Howe and Tyndall will have to ride that media storm. The Nationals will be out in force, and the press conference is going, so Eddie, would you consider it? But he's already answered the question. He's already said no.
I know, but it's hypothetical. It's hypothetical question at the moment.
I think it might be Postecoglou. Yeah. I mean, he keeps getting these jobs where he says he's the last on the list because no one else takes it. He's done a decent job as well, I think.
A brash Aussie.
Yeah. No.
We've got one of them, and it's hard enough to control on this blooming show. Never mind, having one as England manager. Come on. Give me a shake.
You You mentioned Dunnell, by the way. Dunnell often messages me some gems, and he has sent this one in the other day, which I forgot to read out, and it says, the BBC News has just reported that the man who first introduced men and women playing tennis together in a foursome has died yesterday. Rest in peace, Mick Stubbles.
Oh,
Thanks,
dear,
Donald.
Doctor. And on that note, I think we better get into the old news headlines.
Mackems and Proud. Black Cats News.
It's Player of the Month time at the Stadium of Light. After an incredible month of September, Super Jack Clark, Defensive Rock Dan Ballard, Watford Slayer Niall Huggins, and Pride of Northern Ireland Trey Hume are all nominated. Fans can jump onto the club's Twitter account to vote. Lee Howe has taken a pop at Terry Butcher's 10-month spell in charge of Sunderland, describing him as a terrible manager. After joining the Black Cats, Butcher avoided relegation but was then sacked in December after a poor run of results. And the Lasses have been well represented in the international break. Ellen Jones and Mary McAteer were both selected for the Wales senior squad for their UEFA Nation League games, and McAteer making a debut for the Dragons, coming on against Germany. Casey Watson bagged 2 for England under-19s in games against Greece and Wales.
Magpies and Proud. Mags News.
Newcastle United marched into the quarter-finals of the Carabao Cup last night with a demolition of last year's trophy winners Manchester United on their own patch in front of 7,300 travelling supporters on another momentous night for the Magpies. Goals from Almiron and Hall in the first half were followed up with a superb strike from Willock as Eddie Howe made 8 changes to the side that drew at Wolves last Saturday. Their reward for last night's win is another away draw, this time to Chelsea at Stamford Bridge in the quarter-finals in December. John Terry has revealed he was rejected by Newcastle United and 2 League One clubs after leaving his coaching job at Aston Villa. Terry claims he was interviewed for the St James's Park hot seat before Eddie Howe accepted the job. And Eddie Howe has been tipped to succeed Gareth Southgate as England manager by former Three Lions striker Peter Crouch. Crouch made the prediction in an interview yesterday. That's your Newcastle United headlines this Thursday morning.
Smoggies and Proud. Borough News.
Borough have been given a fantastic opportunity to progress to the semi-finals of the League Cup. Former Newcastle striker Andy Cole pulled Borough out of the hat to face League One Port Vale away from home in the quarter-finals. Michael Carrick's boys will have to wait until the week before Christmas until they pull the boots on in the Potteries. Meanwhile, Carrick has sung the praises of 1,400 Borough fans who made the 700-mile, 14-hour round trip to Exeter City's St James's Park 2 days ago in a sellout crowd. The Borough boss described the support as outstanding, but says he wasn't at all surprised at the following. And now the same fans have to face a longer trip this weekend to fellow Devonians Plymouth Argyle for Saturday's championship battle in another sold-out away end. Plymouth sit 19th in the table and have only 1 win in the last 5 games. And that's your Borough headlines.
Steve and Rye. The North East Footy Breakfast.
The Cats, the Tune and the Red.
And just a quick reminder for Sunderland fans, we haven't forgotten you. James Copley's going to be with us in about 10-15 minutes. Yeah, about 10 minutes actually, on the North East Footy Breakfast straight after the sports news. So we will be talking Sunderland news. Go on then.
A bit of breaking news. David Beckham, we've all watched the documentary and now we've talked about it a couple of times on the show. He's finally accepted an invitation for dinner with King Charles.
Yeah, I saw that.
Potentially clearing the way for him to receive a knighthood. So, does Beckham deserve a knighthood, lads?
I'll go, does anyone deserve a knighthood? But apart from that...
go on, expand on that.
No, I'm just not in favour of the honours system generally. But you know what? I mean, he's as deserving as lots of people who've had it. More deserving than Jimmy Savile, for instance. It's like...
Now then. As it happens. Yeah. That was curtailed.
yeah. I'll stop that one there.
You'll stop at that one. Yeah, okay.
No. Listen, Beckham has been an ambassador for his country. He's captained his country. He's done well at at all the levels, all the way through. He's been an ambassador for the country, and he's played his fair share on, I would say, diplomatic journeys to various countries where they've got nefarious reputation, shall we say. So he's done his bit. He's ticked all the boxes. I would say Alan Shearer's ticked all the boxes as well, because him and Beckham are very similar. I think I think Shearer, if we're going to have a knighthood for David Beckham, I think Alan Shearer should have one.
Really?
Because I don't think he's done. Yes, I do.
I mean,
because Alan Shearer has done just as much. He's done just as much for. What has Beckham done any different to what has Beckham
just
done
his ambassadorial roles for English football. You know, he was part of the World Cup bids. He's been part of the Euro bids. He's been out and about doing pressing the flesh and doing all that sort of stuff, which Al hasn't done. I mean, if you're just looking for what he's done on the pitch and representing now king and country, then yeah, fair, you've got an argument. But I think it's off the pitch where Beckham has got involved in just using brand Beckham. For the
Alan Shearer Foundation,
for the benefit. Well, I'm thinking for the benefit of the country. Alan Shearer Foundation's fantastic. It's brilliant. The work it does is fantastic. But
NSPCC, he's done so much work for charity.
Yeah, absolutely. But it would be a knighthood. He would be recognised with the knighthood for services to football, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Oh God, it's a hard one. I'm not saying Al's not worthy of it. I'm just focusing on Beckham and what Beckham's done. I think knowing how these honours get handed out, I can see every reason why he would get one, and I'm sure he wants one. I'm sure that's the thing. He loves. I'm sure he loves the ring of Sir David Beckham.
I think one of the things about it is Beckham in his early days, not so much now, was portrayed as some kind of idiot. The guy's really smart. His PR is really smart. He knows what he's doing.
He was that sick lad from, where was it? Was it Dagenham?
Yeah, somewhere. But I think that's the thing. Beckham is really smart. His PR and how he's portrayed is fantastic. And I'm not saying he's not a really good guy and done loads of good stuff and doesn't deserve it. But what I'm saying is, Shearer, his foundation stuff just sort of bubbles under. It's not massively publicised. Beckham's stuff is always publicised. It's in the public eye. He knows how to market himself. And that's why he's much more likely to get it.
And marrying posh obviously helped. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it doesn't not a bad thing, is it? So.
Yeah. So look, you asked the question, and I can see the reasons why Beckham would be viewed more favourably in the honours system than Big Al.
Yeah, well, listen, it's all about opinions. I think Al deserves, the same as Beckham. If you're gonna hand them out, then hand them out fairly. I just think I'm not sure what I get it, the whole global thing, but it's interesting to hear what the listeners think. Anyway, get your text into to the WhatsApp message and let us know. Other stuff, plenty breaking news. Sheikh Jazim, I mentioned him just a little bit earlier about the so-called takeover.
Is he buying Bury
Manchester
yet?
United. He's not, but there's talk of him purchasing a stake in West Ham because Vanessa Gould has placed her shares, some of her shares up for sale. Of course, Vanessa, David Gould's daughter, I believe, and she put some of her shares up for sale. No sign of Mike Ashley yet, but yeah, Sheikh
he's focusing on Reading.
Could go to the Hammers. I mean, I can't see that happening. And yeah, Reading. I mean, you put that in our WhatsApp group yesterday. They put out a rather sobering press statement yesterday about their current situation, Dave.
Yeah, give us more, mate. Give us more.
It's not looking good.
Yeah, it's not.
Well, it's not looking good.
HMRC
issues exactly the same as Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah.
Reading clearly have Mike Ashley, circling the club, potentially talking about taking it over. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I often think Mike Ashley does a lot of this for his own publicity and to keep Sports Direct relevant. I think Sheffield Wednesday are going through the same kind of issue, except that the fans have turned on the owner. Now the owner's turned on the supporters, and now he's saying, well, you raised £2 million to keep this club afloat and keep us out of transfer embargoes. I mean, it's a bit of a mess. It is a bit of a mess with these situations, and you could be in a situation if you're not careful where two clubs could go out of business. We've seen it happen before, and these two clubs need help. They desperately need help.
Well, I remember when I went over to the US and was working for ESPN. The first assignment I was given was to fly back to the UK for the start of a Premier League season to cover this team called Reading, as it was described to me, because they were in the Premier League, and I happened to be just so happens to be their opening game of the season of their first time ever in the Premier League was at home to Middlesbrough. So I snapped the opportunity quicker than anybody could offer it me to fly back over on ESPN's expense and watch a Borough game. But I remember doing an interview with Medeski, the owner at the time, and even then he was saying to me, "Do you guys want to buy a chunk of this football club?" So the idea of selling Reading and changes of ownerships has gone on for a long, long time.
There's a lot of clubs on the brink, though, isn't there? There's a lot not a million miles away from it.
Well, it's just the state of the game at the moment. Yeah. And we talked about salary caps in the Premier League. Was it last year? Was it last week, or was it the start of this week? It's all just going into one massive blur. I can't remember, but the game's not healthy outside of even in the Premier League. Yeah. There are not many teams in the Premier League who turn over a profit.
Yeah.
There really aren't. And Steve, you've mentioned Manchester United and loans and that sort of situation, the debt that the club carries. I mean, look at Spain. Barcelona and Real Madrid do not make a profit.
Yeah.
The Real Madrid is in hock for I don't know how many hundreds of millions of euros with the banks, but the banks just wouldn't dare pull the plug on Real Madrid because you know what the Spaniards are like. They just walk away in their droves if a bank shut down their football club. So football's not in a healthy position, and the lower down that pyramid you go, there are more and more problems, and I'm not surprised to see Wednesday, well, once big club with Hillsborough, 50,000 possible fans you could get in there, struggling. Reading, former Premier League club, struggling. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't, unless it is a Sheikh Jazim or somebody who comes in with pocketfuls of cash who can just write off, tens of millions of losses every year.
Yeah, it's a crazy situation. It really is, and unfortunately for a club like Reading, they seem to be attracting those kind of. I'll be careful because I don't want to get into trouble. But the usual suspect. Yeah. That's the word. And I noticed that there was that infamous entrepreneur, I'll call him William Story. The same person who was hovering around Sunderland at one point, who makes out that he's going to buy the club, goes for exclusivity, and then withdraws. Again, when you're a club that's desperate to sell, unfortunately, you attract these kind of people. There are these how could I say it? Tire kickers, people who you think are being genuine, and you're desperate for them to be genuine, but unfortunately maybe they don't have any intention on buying your football club, and it was no surprise to see him withdrawing his interest, and Mike Ashley is still there circulating around the club. Sunderland had that. I know he was, again, because I had so much of a hands-on with Newcastle's attempted takeovers over the years. He was another one who was, looking at Newcastle, allegedly. Sometimes it's good to get that little bit of publicity out there. It just keeps you relevant, keeps you in the public eye, for whatever reasons that you want that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we never know what goes on in these conversations, how serious somebody is or isn't, but you just have to look at Man U. I mean, they went through a bit of an embarrassing run as well, didn't they, with, what do they call him, Michael, what was the guy who ended up buying Carlisle? Knighton. Yeah, Michael Knighton, dribbling the ball and putting it into the net and doing that real public display of, I'm going to be the next owner. Then Sky tried to buy them, and they were blocked by the government and all that sort of stuff going on. So, yeah, it's a problem, but I would just love somebody to throw a couple of $100 million into the Borough at any moment in time. That would be nice. We're waiting on you, Dave. All right, thanks. Yeah, well, you got a long wait then, mate. I'm telling you, I could throw a couple of. I might be able to throw a couple of. I was going to say a couple of 100 million pence, but I can't even do that. That's still a large sum of money. It is the North East Footy Breakfast. We are going to talk Sunderland very, very shortly. James Copley from the Sunderland Echo is going to join us. He'll do that after this.
Steve and Rye, the North East Footy Breakfast.
Right across the North East, the red, the cat, and the two.
No Rye, because Mrs. Rye's just given birth to a baby, so hopefully he's back with us next week. Steve is with us, and I don't know, Ted, our resident Mackham, has disappeared. He's gone AWOL because his boss needs him to fill in for a week. So I'm pleased to say we will have Sunderland representation. We do have Sunderland representation because we're joined by James Copley, the Sunderland AFC writer, football writer extraordinaire, who joins us this morning. Is that a big enough build-up, James, do you think?
Lovely, thank you. Yeah, best build-up I've had all week.
Oh, brilliant. Good man.
Morning, James. Morning.
Good morning. We all sound very chipper this morning.
Newcastle.
We are.
Listen, go on.
We are on Tyneside, mate. It's been.
I can't imagine why.
Oh, you can come in all the time if you're going to put him down like that. Get in, love it. Let's look. We have waxed on about Newcastle. They beat some tin pot team in a tin pot stadium recently, and the Borough obviously having the luckiest straw in the world when it comes to the Carabao. But Sunderland, Sunderland have. I suppose they've had a week off, haven't they? No midweek action. They got themselves back to winning ways last weekend. It is a long trip and a tricky trip to Swansea coming up, but will Mogra and the boys have benefited from being able to just get on the training ground, James, this week?
I think so, yeah. Without a midweek game, I think that will be hugely beneficial. Obviously, you have the international breaks as well. A lot of Sunderland's players do go off internationally, especially for the youth sides around the world. So Mowbray doesn't usually have a full squad to work with on the training pitch when the international breaks roll around. So I think, a good week for them on the training pitch at the Academy of Light will have done them the world of good. I think Swansea City is a tough proposition, though. They're not in the best of form, Swansea, and they haven't had the best start to the Championship season, but with it being such a long trip, I think it is a tough one for Sunderland. But they did get back to winning ways against Norwich, which was most welcome.
Yeah, how important was that?
I think very important. I think what was really pleasing was that even though Sunderland went a goal down, their sort of belief didn't shake, and neither did the crowds. Actually, there was a recognition that actually Sunderland had been the better side, and the goal perhaps was a little bit iffy. So everyone sort of stuck together, and Sunderland played the better football and won it. It felt like a little bit of a sliding doors moment in terms of the two clubs, because Norwich hadn't won in 5 and Sunderland had lost 3 on the spin coming into that. So two teams bang out of form, but Sunderland managed to run away with a comfortable victory in the end.
It was getting a bit. We had a few fans telling us they were getting a bit worried because it was 3 defeats on the spin. It was almost like has that been our golden moment, that start of the season, and are we slipping into some longer run of bad form and poor results? Were you getting concerned at any point? I know you're a fan as well as obviously a football writer looking at Sunderland. Were you getting concerned at any point?
It's a really good question, actually, and I was talking about this to a few friends, but I think when you're a journalist and you don't pay for your ticket anymore, you're able to look at the long term a little bit more. I think it's frustrating losing games when you have to shell out the money and away day costs and stuff like that. For me, though, I wasn't panicking because I thought the performances were there over the 3 games. There were refereeing decisions. I think Sunderland against Middlesbrough were in the ascendancy until
let it go, mate. Let it go.
Until Dan Neil got sent off. There was a penalty against Leicester that probably should have been given. A handball in the lead up to one of Stoke's goals. So although Sunderland lost those 3 games, it wasn't sort of panic stations for me in terms of the performances, but there's always a recognition that football is a results-driven business, and if he had lost 4 on the spin, the pressure would have built on Tony Mowbray, I think. But fortunately, that hasn't happened, and Sunderland can get back to winning ways again. Hopefully against Swansea. I think they're sitting 7th in the Championship at the moment. Historically, they're just about where they need to be in terms of securing a playoff spot. That they're miles off historically the points total you'd need to get automatics. But the Championship's a mad division and anything can happen.
James, I asked Ian earlier on, just what's your thoughts? I think Sunderland and Middlesbrough are pretty much even Stevens this year. I think it's neck and neck. I think you're both going to get each other in the playoffs. I don't think either of you will put a run together to get to those automatic spots. I think Leicester are too good. Unless there's a major collapse at Leicester, I think they'll be up there. I think Ipswich will be up there as well. You never know, because as I say, the Championship is a marathon, not a sprint. But what's your thoughts? I mean, are you confident of doing what you did last year? You made a late run, and from your perspective, do you think Sunderland's got what it takes to go up this season?
I think they've certainly got what it takes to compete and get in and around the playoffs, but I don't really think you can sort of tell until after Christmas, really. Obviously, those Christmas games come thick and fast. The table starts to divide a little bit. Just in the early part of the season, there's been a lot of surprises. I mean, who would have thought Ipswich Town would be up there? I think the best start to a newly promoted side in the Championship ever. Leicester City are running away with it. But Cardiff City, my dad's a Cardiff fan, and we both had them down the bottom at the start of the season. Hull are doing very well under Liam Rossini, and that's not discounting teams that are in the bottom half at the moment that make a run and clinch a playoff spot. I mean, Aston Villa have done it over the years. Nottingham Forest have done it over the years. At this point of the season, to be 17th, 18th, and then sort of fly up the table. So it is very tight. I mean, Cardiff in 6th occupy the last playoff spot on 23 points. And then you look down to sort of Watford as 16th on 17. I mean, that's not a very big gap at all. And then you're looking at 15, 14. Even Huddersfield Town, although I don't think this would happen, but they've got enough points where they could, if they put a run together, could get in and amongst the playoff picture. So it's very hard to tell. I think Sunderland and Middlesbrough, they've got two forward-thinking managers. They like to play on the front foot. They've shown they can get results. Obviously, there's been a bit of a bedding process at Middlesbrough with the sort of flux of the players. But I think a lot with Sunderland as well will depend on goal scoring exploits. They really need to get a striker scoring. And if Ahmad comes back in January and he's the same player that he was last year, then that could be quite an attractive proposition. But I think it's just too early to tell at the moment.
I think it's going to be standard Championship fare. There'll be a month to go, and you have a good run, you're in the playoffs. You have a bad run, you get relegated. It's absolute chaos, which is why I love it so much.
I'm looking at the table now, and what we haven't discussed: Leeds, Southampton, 3rd and 4th. I mean, two strong teams, two strong sides who you wouldn't expect to have a long bad run, so they'd slip out of the top 6. But then we're talking West Brom are in there, Preston around, and Preston the last couple of years have always been hovering. You could almost be looking at Borough and Sunderland and saying out of that lot, there's probably only 2 spots in the playoffs to go for, even at this stage.
Yeah.
I think so.
I agree, lads. I agree.
I mean, it's a hell of
Go on, Jim, sorry.
It's a hell of a table, isn't it, this year?
It is mad, but you mentioned Preston there. They haven't won in 5, lost 3 of the last 5 and drawn the other 2, and they're still 9th. It's insane. Sunderland are still 8th, having won 2 in 5 and lost 3 on the spin. Honestly, it's a bananas league. And, you're looking at Norwich in 17th on 17 points, and they've lost 4 of the last 5. It's absolutely insane.
I know, it's crazy. We had Barnesy on earlier in the week. Nick Barnes, the BBC Radio Newcastle Sunderland commentator, and congratulated him on his 1,000+ games now, because he's gone past the 1,000.
Congratulations, Barnesy.
He came out with an interesting one. We were asking him about Mogger, and we were asking him about managers. And he is absolutely convinced Tony Mowbray is the right man to be able to blend these, what is a young squad, get them performing as a team to get them into the Premier League. Are you on par with that?
Yes, I think when you look at Tony Mowbray's record historically, it's actually very good with young players. I think wrongly I sort of typecast him as a bit of a dinosaur, really, having not really studied his record. But if you look at his record, Middlesbrough, Blackburn, in terms of young players, he always tries to push the envelope in that regard. I think what he did last season was extraordinary, really taking over from Alex Neil. The club was not down in the doldrums, but it took a little bit of sort of geeing everybody up. He works well with young players. You can't really find a player who's got much of a bad word to say about him. He's very good with the media. Not that sort of matters really in terms of performances, but he comes across as just a nice, genuine, straight-talking guy.
Apart from his chocolates, mate, at the start. Apart from his chocolates at the start of press conferences, yeah.
But Barnesy will tell you as well, I think he wants to be asked the questions. He's got no issue with being asked the questions, and I think that's, it's good to have it in a manager. And I think, Tony Mowbray highlights the issue all the time, but as I mentioned, if they can get one of those forwards scoring, one of the strikers scoring, then that'll make a huge amount of difference.
Yeah. Just quick, Steve's got to leave us shortly as well, but just your thoughts at the weekend. Swansea, what you're expecting?
Yeah, it's a tough one to call. Obviously, I think they won the last. Have they won the last game? Yes, they won the last game. 2 losses before that. I don't know. It's always coloured when it's a long away trip, isn't it? It sort of changes your analysis of it. It shouldn't. I've got no idea what Sunderland's travel plans are, but last season we weren't great down there. We went 2-0 down, got 1 back, but didn't really look like winning. I'm going to go with a draw. I reckon Sunderland will draw down there.
Useful point coming back from South Wales. James, brilliant, mate. Thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure to get your insight and your views.
Yeah,
thanks, guys.
Cheers. Fingers crossed for the weekend.
Yeah, take care.
Thank you. Cheers. That's James Copley, the Sunderland Football Club writer for For the Sunderland Echo, giving us his thoughts, and a big Sunderland fan too. So he's not just a journo, which is good to see. Steve, are you legging it now?
Yes, I've got to go. Ian, James, thank you for joining us this morning. Rye, I hope those sleepless nights you're managing them, mate. You're managing them. I hope
We see with our WhatsApp group. We see with our WhatsApp group. He's up at all hours, the poor lad. So I don't think he's getting much sleep at the moment.
And Ted's only one step away from taking over Remington Steel now, I've heard. With all the work he's putting in this week. But yes, I will love you and leave you. Listeners, thank you as always. Dunno, especially the Newcastle fan who was cheering on Newcastle just as much as I was last night. I will see you all tomorrow. I'm going back to be a lovey. Take care, lads.
Enjoy the shoot, mate. Steve Wraith joining us as per usual, part of the breakfast crew, but he's got to go and earn a crust now. So tomorrow's show, of course, Newcastle against Arsenal, Plymouth versus the Borough, and Swansea against Sunderland. We'll have a quick look at that after this.
Steve and Rye, the North East Footy Breakfast.
Right across the North East, the red, the cat and the tune.
So we've done a lot of Newcastle, and we've just had a chunk of Sunderland. I think it's time, since they've left, two Borough fans to finish the show. And we'll be joined by a third shortly, because Daz is going to be walking through to have a chat with us before he starts his mid-morning nonsense. Speak of the devil, and he shall arrive. Morning, mate.
Good morning.
Morning, Daz.
So let's have a look at that draw then, that Carrier Bag Cup draw. Obviously, we've discussed Newcastle going to Chelsea.
Yeah.
Now, look, if they beat Chelsea, you've got to say congratulations. You deserve to be in the semi-final to lose to Middlesbrough. But, they've done Man City away. They've done Man United away. They'll have done Chelsea away. Yeah. So, hats off to United for getting themselves through if they do. But yesterday's show, it was like, 1 in 7 chance getting Port Vale. That's the one we really want. It would have been nice to have been at the Riverside for once. We haven't. We've been on our travels every round. But Port Vale away on what will be a wet and windy pre-Christmas Tuesday or Wednesday. Happy with that?
Yeah, more than happy. I would have loved it to be at home. We have had a similar draw to Newcastle, haven't we? The same sort of teams.
Yeah,
It's
the only similarity is we all of us have travelled. Yeah, it's always been away.
To be honest, if you were going to pick a draw to get to a cup semi-final, and I'm not counting my chickens because it is Borough.
Oh yeah, masters of grabbing defeat from the jaws of success.
You couldn't have picked a better one, really.
I mean, the ultimate would have been at home.
Yes,
but if you're not getting that would be the second choice, wouldn't it? Port Vale away.
I didn't sit and watch it. I'm an early riser in the morning. It was just too late on Sky for the actual draw. I watched the match, but so I got up this morning. First thing, checked the phone, and it was like, am I actually awake yet? Is this? I'm still dreaming. We've got Port Vale away. Like, oh yeah, we have. Right, great. Awkward place to get to. But other than that, fantastic. I'm interested to know what we'll do with the team. Are we going to still play, what is effectively close to a second string? Now it's getting pretty serious. Are we going to tweak it a bit and put some of the normal league starters in the lineup? For me, I'd probably leave it. Maybe put Dieng in, because I think he makes a big difference, not just as a pure goalkeeper, but driving us forward from the back as well. I think he'd just make a huge difference.
Are you happy with that draw?
Very happy. You may have heard the cheers from my house from here, I think.
What, in Blythe? They thought the Wilton complex had gone up. It wasn't. It was you cheering at the ball being pulled out.
I would have liked a home draw. I think most Borough fans would have preferred that.
I was putting my money on a home draw against Newcastle. I really did. I was pumping it out on social media going, I'm telling you, I can feel it in my water. It's going to be Borough Newcastle. That's exactly what it's been set up for. Or the final. Yeah. We'll pull Liverpool in the semis, do them over 2 legs, no problem. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the prospect of a Premier League team coming in, over 2 legs, home and away, I think, but let's not underestimate.
How many times have we been there in the past? Leighton Orient is about a long time ago, that one. You've got to be old like Ozzy and remember that one.
I was at that away leg.
So was I. I got into trouble at ICI's apprentice training ground the next day because I'd nicked off. I was at Wolves. Man City, semi-finals. Yeah, sorry, mate, I'm just talking over you.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. They'll be up for it. Port Vale will be absolutely up for it, won't they? And it's going. I think it's going to be another tasty game. But I mean, I was surprised how good the Exeter game was. The other night. It was.
It was a great game, actually.
Yeah, it was a good game.
Some worldy goals in
I know, wasn't it? It was like watching Manchester United Newcastle. It's like, what's going on here?
Yeah. No, it was much more even.
Much more even, yeah. I'll give them that. But I'm sure Exeter, I'm sure Port Vale will be delighted with the draw as well. They've got Borough at home. They'll probably look at Borough and go, that's the best draw for us.
Yeah, they'll be fancying the chances as well.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I can't.
You can't see it. It's Michael Carrick.
Yeah,
it's Michael Carrick in charge.
I'll tell you what concerned me. I looked at the Fly Me at the Moon message board this morning, and people going, "Oh, what hotel are you booking for the final?" I'm like, "Please, no."
For the final?
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I know. I'm not that carried away.
You know, if we had a Crew Alexander still in and they got through the semis and we pulled them, then maybe I'd start looking at it. But come on. What could be next? It could be a Liverpool. It could be the winner of Chelsea Newcastle. It's going to be a massive semi-final if we don't slip on the big Borough banana skin, which we've done so many times.
Yeah, that's the issue, isn't it? You know, typical Borough.
Stockholm syndrome, as Steve keeps talking about with Newcastle. Yeah, it is.
I think Carrick is someone different, though, isn't he? I think he will instill a mentality into them that they've got to go there and win that game.
Yeah.
You know, and I know he tweaked the team, didn't he, this week? You know, give some of the bench warmers a run out. Will he do that on this game? I don't know.
I think he will. I mean, there's some really good bench warmers, if you want to call them.
I think he'll stay true to the bulk of that team,
and some of them are really challenging for a place in the league starting lineup as well. So the keen, I don't think they'll take the game lightly. I'm not saying anyone would. But I'm with you on Carrick. For me, the bit I've loved is the calmness. You know, we never get overexcited. Oh, well, he doesn't. I do. He never gets overexcited. He never gets too down. We will have that right attitude of it. We've got to win that game. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
I can't believe how good he is. No, when we took him on. I know he'd done that little spell at Man U as caretaker and done really well.
Yeah.
But you're just going, right, you know, this is a big risk. And just really quickly, you're just going, God, well, we've made a really good choice.
How big a risk would it be for Man U to look at him now? Because they're going to get rid of Ten Hag in the next few games. Would they look at him now, or is it still too soon for Carrick?
I think they will. I think the biggest problem Man United got, it's not just on the pitch, it's whole behind the scenes, it's the whole culture of the club, it's everything.
And Fergie had to come in and sort that out, didn't he? Yeah.
Carrick's got it. I think it would be a really smart move, but hands off, because we'll come and wreck your club.
Carrick possibly going to Man U. Eddie Howe's going to England, as we know. So yeah.
I wasn't sure on Steve's standpoint on that this morning. Was he unsure or?
Yeah. He was he realised he was on the radio, so he couldn't say what he wanted to say to us, could he? Yeah, absolutely. But now he's treading the boards. God bless him. Well, fellas, that's it. That's another one done. Ian, thanks for coming in, mate.
It's a pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Apart from the broken down train in the rain, but you know,
it's Trans-Pennine Express, mate. They don't even play the red on Trans-Pennine Express. I know. You can get the tune in the cat, but if you try and stream the red, it says blocked because it's streaming music. It's a radio station. We are supposed to stream music, so Trans-Pennine Express. If you're hearing me, Ian needs a new pair of jeans because he spilled his hot coffee when the brakes slammed on this morning. And can you please start streaming the red on the trains? Otherwise, our listeners just won't buy tickets.
Nope.
It's as simple as that. If you enjoyed it so much, you can come back tomorrow morning, mate. It's entirely up to you, and I'll have a word with the trains, not slam the brakes on between Redcar and Middlesbrough. Okay, that's it. Another North East Footy Breakfast is done and dusted. You've got your mid-morning nonsense, but it's a special day today.
Yeah, it is. It's National Male Domestic Abuse Awareness Day today. And
quite a serious thing, yeah.
Yeah, we've got a guy who's the head of the charity that are running the day. He's going to come on and have a chat with us about raising the awareness and what we can do.
Yeah. Cracking. Okay then. Well, look forward to that. I'll have it on in the office downstairs. Yeah. We are on DAB across Teesside now on the red, which is great news. Ian, thank you again.
Pleasure, mate.
With a little love and some tenderness,